Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
Good morning, Rob. Welcome to another episode of Laneway Talks. How are you this week?
I'm good, thanks, Vince. Yeah, thanks for having me once again. It's good to be here.
We've got a lot to talk about today. I've got quite a few points written down. There's a lot happening. So let's just go straight into it. Well, the first one I've got up, more news on the government inquiries that we spoke about 4 episodes ago, where everything's a government inquiry and it's all about how much money the government can put in. And I'm going to relate this topic to a later topic, which I've got down as topic 5 for me. But, one of the things they've come up with in their scheme, which actually I think is not too bad, is to put a levy on major tours. So if I would suspect if you're doing, numbers of 5,000 or more, but they didn't say that, but say, for example, we call them major tours, then there's a levy. Now, it doesn't have to be a big levy. So let's think about Taylor Swift. I know what they would say. They would say that, well, we're bringing our production, everything, it's money for everybody. I'm making $1 billion. But think of all the companies along the way, whether it be airlines, freight companies and whatnot along the way, and people who are selling the merchandise, which is always locals, we employ locals, and whatever, and the merchandise companies and all that kind of stuff are making money. So we got that. And I'll guarantee you that will be their take on it. Why should we have to pay a levy? But if, let's say you're Taylor Swift and you're making $1 billion, well, say you might have to pay, I don't know, 100,000, for example, as a levy. I think that would be reasonable. So if we get a band that's only going to earn, $1 million, well, then it might be $30,000. And if you're going to earn 100,000, maybe you're only going to pay $5,000. Do you think that's reasonable, Rob?
No, not really, but,
Tell me why you think it's not, because I think it is reasonable, and I reckon I'm more conservative than you.
I need to see more information about that whole topic because I don't know what's going where, really.
Well, what you're saying, therefore, is it's one thing to say there's a levy, but where would the money go? Yes, that's a very valid question, and it's like any form of, let's call it donations that are made. You never know where your donations are going, and do they get dissipated by the time they get to the end recipient? So I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but the concept of it I like. Now, they're suggesting that money goes into your grassroots venues for bands to play at, and therefore that's where our future lies. I agree with that. Will the money actually get there? Could be a different question.
Yeah, that's the next.
Okay. All right. Number 2 for me is ARIA. This week announced that they will be having a local number 1. So a homegrown number 1. Now, remember we spoke about this probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, that there was no homegrown number 1s in the ARIA charts for the first 6 months of this year. And I think you went, what, really? What's ARIA?
Yeah.
So right. they've now brought that in, Rob.
They must be listening to our Vince.
Well, yeah. Look, I think it's a good thing. Again, as much as I think they're just run by the major labels, the major labels own ARIA, and that's that. It's an organisation. But I think the concept of doing that is good. I mean, what do you think?
I think that Australian representation of musicians globally needs to be larger than it is, because I'm a bit miffed at who's out there, really. Not that I pay a lot of attention to it.
Well, that's a whole nother question. See, understanding where you and me come from and what we like, and I think I've said to you in the past, is that while I was at Mushroom, for example, I never knew really what else was a number 1 or top 10 because I focused on our stuff. When I was at Shock, it's the same thing. And now that I'm at Laneway, it's the same thing again. So I do put the shutters on because I'm so focused on what I'm promoting at the time. But, I'll bring something up that I think is worthy. I was going to bring it up later. But I was going down, I go down the coast once a week, and because, that's where I grew up. And I went past the Pier Hotel, Frankston. Do you remember the Pier Hotel, Frankston, Rob?
I played there a few times, yes.
Yeah, exactly. I played there a few times myself. There's a big room, there's a small room. Now, they are quite aggressive in promoting big bands. And what I mean by that, bands that have got a real following. So they might, look, they don't publicise it. They may put on a band prior, a local band or whatever, but their whole aim, and they do it about once a month, maybe 2 times a month maximum. Now, that used to be in every Friday and Saturday, venue, if you remember clearly. Could have even been Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Well, they've kind of canned that, and it is a big room. It holds 800. So they have started putting on bands that I think can, definitely pull those numbers or more. And one of the bands I saw up there this week was Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers. Ever heard of them?
Never.
Okay. Four girls, and they have got their 5 top songs on Spotify alone have got 2 million or more. One of them's got 4.5 million streams. So what have we got here? We've got a young, they probably look like they're 20 to me. 4 girls, and that's fantastic to see. And, they're doing that indie pop. I call it indie rock pop. It's that borderline between all of them. And they've obviously doing their job very well on social media and whatever because they're getting those kind of streams. Now, they have said that they can't make money. They were involved in this whole government investigation at the inquiry, and they got brought up there. And they go that they can't earn money yet from music, and they're the kind of figures they're getting. So I wanted to explore and tell everybody a bit about what would you earn on Spotify alone. Now, Spotify, say here, represents a good 80% of the market. Apple is about 8%, 10%. In America, Apple's about 40%. Spotify is only about 50 or something, and you got Deezer, Tidal, Pandora, all those. Essentially, Spotify's the platform around the world. So if on Spotify, if you were to have that, I worked it out to about 12 million. They had about 12 million streams in their top 5. What would they earn? Well, they probably earn about 7,000 Australian dollars a month, depending on their deal.
Okay.
That could be from 6 to maybe 9,000 Australian. So let's pick 7,000. That's where I've gone. And so therefore they've earned probably $70,000 to $100,000 in streaming income from about 14 million streams, which isn't fantastic, but we know there's issues with that because you and me have discussed it extensively on this show, correct?
We have, yes.
We know, we know this.
You bring it back because I've got Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers on my right in front of me. They've got 110,723 monthly listeners.
Yep.
And their biggest song is R, and that's 4,250,000 streams.
Yep.
So on what you were saying, their top 5, you've got 2.5, 5 million, 9 million, 10, 11, 12, say 12 million plays they've got.
Okay. I said 14, so 12. I was wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I'm adding it up in my head. But
you go against the next 5, it picks up another couple of mil.
Yeah. So you're talking about how much they would earn from that 12 million track.
On Spotify.
On Spotify.
Yeah. So there's about $70,000 to $100,000 there.
All right.
Okay. Now, I don't think that's acceptable, by the way. I don't think that's acceptable at all. But it's still a lot of money. Now, what comes with that is that's a large audience. They've got a large following each month listening, and therefore you need to then mobilise your merchandise, and they've said that they make their money now from merchandise on shows. Now, that's definitely I know merchandise well because I was part owner in the biggest merchandise company in the country with Michael. So I know the figures. So should be very true. But just from the shows alone, from those kind of figures, now remember that's around the world. Now then I'd have to see how much of that is in Australia. But if they can pull 500 to 800 people, but let's say even 500 people to every show, they should be making money from that show too. And they should be charging accordingly, $30 a ticket. So there should be money in all of that. And then, as I say, you've got the merchandise on top of that. You've got there should be their video streaming. They should be making money from that. There should be many other avenues where they should be monetising everything they do. They're on their own label, I think, but It'll have to go, whether they're going through DSPs themselves or whether through a major label, I don't know, because it's got their label.
It doesn't actually put it on here, does it?
Yes, if you pick the album and then go to the bottom of the album, it'll tell you what the label is. Have a look at that.
Domestic La.
That's the one.
Right. You heard
Okay.
it?
No, well, it could be their own label, you see, and they're just doing it themselves, which to me is very good. And what I would give advice on is that's a very good way of doing it. And when you get to a point of where you're at now with those kind of streams, they could go to a major and do a distribution deal with a major, not necessarily with the distribution partner of the major. So, for example, what I mean by that is that Universal use Virgin Music now as their distributor for they use that as a separate business altogether, which distributes other bands. So I'm not suggesting, I'm suggesting you do a direct deal with a major and you say, right, well, every record we release, let's say every album we release, you need to pay us $100,000. Okay, we want that as an advance up front, and then we use that to record with. We use it as our tour support, as our marketing support, and then we want a 50-50 deal after that. And that's the kind of deal I would do. All right. Go on, say that again. What were you going to say?
That's not.
So I didn't hear that, mate. That's cutting out.
It's not a lot of money.
Well, 100,000, I think, as an advance is. I think I totally disagree with you. I think that is a lot of money in this marketplace. If you listen to Rick Beato, as you do, he was talking, the days of 350,000. Yeah, well, I was there. We were spending 350,000 per album release.
Yeah.
And as he said, now you'd be lucky to get 50,000. Even 30,000. Now, so a 100,000 deal, I think, is quite easy to get if you're doing these kind of numbers I just mentioned, and that's got to support you. That's just your head start. What you've got to do is then make all the money after that. Now, the recoupment on that would still be on that 50-50 deal with the major. But you've got the major behind you who want it to work because they've advanced you the money and you are on their label, not any subsidiary. You're going out via them. So that's what I would do. I think that's a good deal. I think that and remember with that too, Rob, I would also be putting in there, we are on an album by album deal until we recoup, of course. So I'd say, right, well, each album it just rolls on if we want it to roll on, but we must recoup. So if we unrecouped, well, no, it can't roll on. We've got your next record too. But if you recoup, then it's here. Let's say, are we signing for the next one? And it's not a whole agreement. It's just a roll-on agreement where you say, yes, we're going to move to the next one. Now, that puts you in a situation where you're in control as the artist and you could go to the world with that. So if it gets big enough and the local, let's use Universal, locally Universal go, yeah, it's great, but no, we can't get any releases for you around the world, or, even though we put it up, we can't market it around the world because the other divisions aren't as excited about it. Well, then you go, well, I'm going to sign to someone overseas. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go to LA, or I'm going to go to London. So it gives you complete freedom, and you're in a very powerful position as artists. But remember who's taken a pinch of the pie here every step of the way. Everybody, So,
and that's what I mean with $100,000. It's not a big pie to be able to take all those chunks out of it, is it?
Well, I disagree with you. I think that's it. I wouldn't spend any more than $25,000 recording at a major studio in Australia these days. More than enough. Yeah, $25,000. Easy. No problem. The days of being in the studio for 8 weeks, they're gone. You'd be in and out in 4 weeks max. So, and if bands are together, they should be doing plenty of pre-production in rehearsal studios and going in and recording their parts. The days of going into a recording studio and working the songs out or coming up with new songs in there, they are gone, except for Beyonce and those nutcases. But for your normal artist who's on the way up, there's no way you would go in there and start to conceive a song in the studio. You would do pre-production, you would know what songs you're going in to record, and you do it. And if you if you've got a good manager and you know what you're doing, certain parts are done certain ways to get efficiencies in. So, you use there might be 4 studios in the studio recording complex. There might be a small room which only costs you $700 a day. You're in there doing the guitar parts. Then if you need the drum parts, you're in the big room. That's costing you, $1,500 a day or $1,200 a day. And so you go in there only when you're doing your drum lines, yada, yada, yada. And you do it really efficiently. And you get in and you get out. And, then mixing it once again. Only a fool would spend, 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks. I'd spend, once it's all recorded, I would spend a couple of weeks mixing. You need to nail it. You need to know what you're looking for. Anyway, there's a lot of personals in that, but I've done it so much on that level that I've seen it all, and I see where money's wasted. And Rick Beato brings it up quite clearly where all the money gets wasted. So anyway, that's enough on that. I see that the Screaming Jets have joined New World Artists. Now, New World Artists, Rob, is Owen Orford. Now, you know who Owen Orford is, don't you?
No, I don't.
Finch. Remember Finch?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's the singer. So he's been running them for 20 years, and they're part of an international agency. Anyway, the Jets have moved there, and which is really surprising because I thought the Jets were with Premier Harbour. So that's a big move, to move away from Premier Harbour, an act of that ilk, and a heritage artist, and they are a heritage artist who are still doing very well. They're still pulling decent crowds. I mean, I would have thought they could pull 800 people to a show.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they pull over here.
They'll do the Chelsea or whatever here. That's 880, 900. They do some pretty big venues.
I do the Gov over here, which is 600.
Well, I was going to talk about a few things next week about some venues that there was some news about venues over in Adelaide and over here or whatever, but I'm going to bring them up next week. But the next thing I want to talk about is the Punters Club, which I brought up several weeks ago, and now I found out, Rob, that it's quarter owned by Mark Wilson from Jet. So he bought in, and they've bought in the CLBR agency to book, who are a local agency but book around Australia. And there's some really exciting news about this, that they're going to have a free stage with a 250 capacity. So think about the Esplanade when you were over here, Rob. Remember the front bar was always free?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, same kind of thing. They're later going to introduce a 100 capacity band room, and they're going to also bring in a live room later in the year, which is for intimate, high quality headliner shows, right? But they're thinking 100 capacity max. So small rooms. 250 is quite big. It's not a big venue, so they're really going to use their existing space quite efficiently to be able to do that. But and they're going to start shows from mid-August, so in a couple of weeks. And I just think that's super exciting in this climate of all venues are saying they're closing. And I'm going to bolster this up by adding this. And you and me have said, well, it's a commercial venture, and so you got to run it commercially, and you should be able to do well if you're running it well commercially. I had to go to a show on Sydney Road, Brunswick, on Saturday night. And on my walk up, because I park maybe half a click back, because it's a hard parking area, and I walk up. Now, first hotel I passed was the Star Hotel, packed solid. It's more a metal venue, and they were metalheads, I can tell you. So I passed the Star Hotel packed. I then go past the Retreat Hotel, busy as hell, and I could hear it booming, right? That was another 400 yards up the road. I then go another 200 yards up the road, and we come past the Brunswick Ballroom. That's got upstairs and downstairs. Upstairs holds about 400, downstairs holds about 60, packed to the rafters. I then go a bit further up where I had to go to see a band, and I go to the Penny Black, and I go in there, and there's got to be at least 100 people in there. And it's a sizable room, probably holds probably 200, okay? And it's a free gig. So remember what I just said before, that the Punters are going to have their free stage up the front with a 250 capacity. Now, they're over in Fitzroy, which ain't too far from Sydney Road, Brunswick. It's only around the corner. And here I am at the Penny Black, which is a free gig in their front room. This is fantastic news. And they were all really pumping. So there are venues that are really doing well. And the Bendigo Hotel we spoke about 10 weeks ago, which had gone out of business, is opening again.
New owners or?
New owners.
Yeah, right.
So plenty going on gig-wise here. Plenty going on. And that's my kind of, my topics for this week, because I was very excited about it all, and there's some exciting news. I got to tell you honestly, the only non-exciting news in that is when you talk about government inquiries and all these people crying blue murder, that they're going broke and they can't survive in the music industry.
Yeah, crazy.
All right, what's on the agenda from you, Rob?
Been incredibly busy recording and filming myself. So,
well, I have seen some of that footage you sent me.
Yes. Just the one of Michael's that we did last night?
Yeah, the one of Michael's, and, the other one you sent me of Virgin Soldiers, and you're getting your video ready there and trying to get everybody around the whole country to do their parts, which is,
right.
a feat in itself. I
filmed another clip with an artist that I work with over here, Blake Shepherd, and been editing and mixing that as well. I've been stuck.
Well, who's that band? So hold on, we've got Virgin Soldiers. Yeah. We've got Michael Hill, who we've signed separately, but is in a band with you also. And then what else have you got? What was the other one? Black Shepherd, was it?
Blake Shepherd.
Blake Shepherd.
Yeah, she's the artist that's done the past 3 Virgin Soldiers covers.
Right, but she's a musical artist too.
Yeah. She's she plays keyboards, sings, plays drums, and working together.
And so what are you doing with her? A song?
Yeah, we've done a couple of songs that we've written and been working on for a while, a couple of years, and lyrics and playing all the parts and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, and we just did a video last week. We're still working on that. So
that's a new one for me. I didn't know you were doing that. So, mate, that's your flat chat, really, on the creative side, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. I've just buried in the studio. And I've got another gig coming up with heavy metal over here. He's got his 60th. He's asked me to play with him. We're doing a Hollywood Gun Club, a few songs from his album, which was 5019, which came out in 2014.
Is it Kevy? What's the name? What's his name?
Well, it's Kevin Keeler is what he's on Spotify. Now, I had a look.
Yeah.
Kevin Keeler.
Was that with a Keeler, K-L?
K-E-E-L-E-R.
Right, Keeler. Right, Kevin Keeler. Okay, I'll have to listen to it. Kevan. Right, K-E-V, Kevin. Yeah.
Keeler, yeah. And he's out 5019, and it's kind of was Hollywood Gun Club, but he got Greg Bissonette and Matt Bissonette to play.
Who are they?
Greg Bissonette played with David Lee Roth. Greg Bissonette plays with Ringo Starr, who's the world with him at the moment. So,
oh, wow. They're big names.
They're huge names, especially it's session guys. Kevin put a lot of money into it. That was 2014 when he released that album. But it's interesting, the dichotomy of things like that, because I had a look online and he's got 10 monthly listeners.
Oh, that's not good.
No, because he's like most of us from the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yep.
We just fall way behind on everything that's going on at the moment. It's just a massive.
You know how big it is, and you've got to be careful yourself, Rob, not to spread yourself too thin, because there is Rob's Drum Shed, and you're working on these creative projects. You must make sure you don't spread yourself too thin, because yes, things will fall behind. I know it, man. I've been there myself. I find it at the time. I'd had a bit of a hit the wall yesterday because it's quarterly results for all the artists, and it just kind of hit the wall. I have so much going on, and I have blank moments where I think, what the hell do I have to do next? I've got to go to my schedule, and you got to push through it, Rob. I don't know if you find that. You got to push through it.
Yeah, I work every day.
Well, I realise you do, but put these extracurricular activities on top of that, and that because if I say you work, you got the drum shop and you got your tuition, so that's where the real money's coming from.
That's right.
But if you start putting in the bands that you're playing in and recording with and making videos and trying to write new songs, I mean, that really starts to stretch yourself.
Yeah, it does. That's why it's long.
Yeah. So, I think that you have to be very careful not to stretch yourself, and you need to focus back. And for some artists, if they don't get across all of that, then they're in trouble anyway. I was speaking to an artist who is potentially coming online. He's a bit of a shredder, so we're going to, I suppose, metal. And we were talking about it, and he said, I just can't get my head across everything to get the whole thing moving. One of his songs had 200,000 streams, but he goes, I couldn't keep replicating it. I just can't get across everything. It's too much. It's too much, Rob. And that's where
I've been doing shorts as well. So
ads again, another one, yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, I've got like 78 videos on my YouTube channel, and I've got 60 on my Vimeo channel, so that's like nearly 140 videos. But I go back and I'll try and get the best 15, 20 seconds out of that, and I'm trying to promote that at the moment as well. But for me, it's part of the creative process.
Yeah.
I like doing it. I like being busy. I like practicing. I like teaching. I like playing. Like the community that we have. When you talk about all those points that you did before, I mean, they're all, for me, a completely different area. As a creative artist, I don't think about any of that, but on a bigger scale. It's all about the creation from a base level for me. So.
Well, nothing wrong with that. I mean, you've got to have that base level for yourself individually. This is what I totally enjoy doing. I think it can be, and especially if you're creative, very hard to do the social media, because the social media is repetitive and you have to push through the barriers to come up with new ideas. It's tough going. But on talking to artists like who I was just mentioning, of course not name-wise, but, I said, well, the thing is with Laneway, he goes, well, are you just a distributor? I said, well, no. What we do is we will champion artists that are quite creative and meet the mark of quality, of course.
Yeah.
We will champion them. That means we'll spend money on them. We will market those artists. And that's the difference. So we're a quasi-label in that we don't have the big dollars of the, big labels, real big independents, but we will spend our money on artists to champion them if we think they're worthwhile, because if they're going to continually be creative and put stuff out, well, that's good for us and good for them. So we do it. And I think that's what excites a lot of artists on that level where they go, oh, it's just all too much. It's somewhere. And, and with us, you're never locked in for, any huge deals. We don't do that. So you can actually get big and suddenly go, oh, I'm signing to Sony now. They've offered me $2 million. So, we would be proud of that anyway, because that's what we're trying to do, is get artists to be successful.
It's all a perspective thing, I think. Even coming back to that point that you made about $100,000 for the artist, that's 4 people. That's $25K each. I mean, that's not a lot of money for an artist that's trying to work full time. Most artists aren't. They're doing multiple things to create income. So when I say it's not a lot of money, because it doesn't go into their pocket, it goes into their production, it goes into their recording studio, it goes into paying producers, it goes into paying for equipment. That's really not a lot, because I know how much equipment is. I had a guy in last week who's a guitar player, a local artist here, and he'd spent $6,000, on an electronic drum kit because he wants to do his post-production. Now, I know he wouldn't be signed to a label, that's come out of his pocket, and he's got to earn it somehow. So it comes back to perspective. When you're paying an artist $100,000 that's got 4 people in the band, that's $25K each. That's not a lot of money to do what we do at all.
Well, you say that. I say you should be so lucky, to any artist, to do those kind of deals in today's market and in the last 10 years. That's the new market. That's what you have to deal with, and that's what you got to develop with.
Yeah, I don't see that's justified in any way, shape or form.
When you say that because of the time put in, you may not be wrong in that. But in reality, that's what it is, and you have to make it work. And if you've got a deal like that happening, you're ahead of the bunch. And that is today's marketplace. And I see it as a real positive, because it gives you the power to springboard to a level that someone who's being offered nothing must work, a day job, to get the money to even do the social media campaigns and all that kind of stuff, if they don't have a Laneway behind them, Laneway Music. So I see it as fantastic. You know, some of the bands back in the late 80s at Mushroom were on delivery deals. So they weren't kind of signed as an artist because they didn't want to give away their independence. So they were on delivery deals. And we used to give them $50,000 back then per album as an advance. And these bands were selling, let's say, at least 70 to 100. So they were platinum and platinum plus, 70 to 100,000 albums. So they're doing quite well. Now, you might go, yeah, but 50,000 back then. Well, no, in actual fact, 50,000 back then, even though in dollar terms might be worth 250,000 in today's purchasing power, doesn't apply to the music business because we were paying $2,200 a day at AAV to record. There's not a studio in the country that would charge you $2,200 a day today. The max you'll be paying is $1,200 a day. $1,200 is max. And if you can do a deal for a month, you'll probably get it at $800 a day. So that 50,000 is probably still comparable in today's and what you're getting. So
I still like to know what you get for that amount of money.
Well, because what you get is back then it gave them the ability to go in and record on their own terms, the way they wanted, not with a label dictating what you had to, no, that song's no good and that is, and delivering that album saying that's what we're delivering to you, take it or leave it. And then making their money from their live shows. And the good bands did make money from their live shows. The badly managed ones, and I was talking to Helen Carter about this from Do Re Mi, and they were with MMA. Do you remember MMA?
Mm-hmm.
Right, MMA would have been the biggest agency in the management agency, and they used to, book venues, but management agency in the country. And she had, as she said, she had no idea what they were being charged and where the money was being spent because they were on a roller coaster ride. But I knew the bands, the good ones that, the ones that made money, because I used to see them and I used to deal with them and I used to pay them. And then the ones that just let it roll and the money was being spent like there was no tomorrow because the management agencies were focused on a worldwide hit. They weren't even concerned with, being huge in Australia because there was no future for the agency in Australia. They had to kind of crack the world for the agency because they were shooting for the stars too themselves as an agency. And so you got all of that going on. And therefore, is 50,000 as an advance back in 1988 any good? It was fantastic. If you were smart, you were on top of the world because back then you would pull 1,200 people to a show. I mean, you pay the Palace in Melbourne and you could even go to 1,800, but 1,200 was quite regular. So from 1,200 people and you're paying, whatever it was, $12 a ticket back then, it was a lot of money. And you usually owned your equipment, had your trucks, and it took you 6 months to pay them off, and then off you go. Now, I know the bands that were making really good dollars and the ones that weren't. Some of the publishing checks I used to pay were enormous, Rob, enormous to some of those bands. They'd buy a house with one publishing check. So there is abilities to make the money, how you make it and how smart you are about it. And there were the ones that just were always broke, just spent the money and lived the lifestyle. And that's the problem. You can't really live the rock and roll lifestyle here. We're not quite big enough. You've got to go to America for that. But you could still do well. So I'm just giving you my experience and how I've seen it. And I've been amongst it. And then there'll be what you say is that, well, it's not enough money and how can you live? Well, this isn't a charity industry. It is bloody tough going. It's a really tough business. And
no, I think you're missing what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When you say you go into a studio these days, I mean, Michael went into Sody Pop Studios to record his demos, and it was $700 for the day. You get all the stems, you get a mix. There's no post production in that.
No, wouldn't be.
I understand that, but I mean, when we did our first album, that cost us in the best part of $10K. When we did the second album, the remix that we did at Power Plant with Adam and Blake and Pete Blyton, it cost us $20K for that remix.
And it would have back then, yeah, big bucks.
That's what I mean. We worked 3 nights a week. I mean, even the band that was in previous to that, we were working 5-6 nights a week. We weren't signed, but we were making a lot of money. That was all going into paying production, paying crew, paying for equipment, and paying for accommodation when you were touring. That's what I mean. It's relative. I understand what you're saying from your point of view, but from an artist's point of view, it's a completely different perspective.
I still can't agree with it.
You're coming from a different perspective, though.
Well, I come from a business and a music perspective, and I think with you've got to be smart about it, and therefore you've got to pick the right management, and you've got to be commercially savvy yourself as a musician to be able to utilise any success that comes your way, and then use that to promote yourself and push yourself to the next level.
Yeah, but it's a very narrow window.
Absolutely. But it always has been, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Has been.
Not disagreeing with you that it's not. And to the 90% out there that don't get through that window, there's still an industry that's around that they create, and they don't stop creating. They don't stop playing music, but they're all pretty much self-funded.
Today, that's kind of correct.
What we get force-fed by, the multinationals or the nationals.
But I still think that, we talked about Teen Jesus there, and for girls who, getting massive streams. Of course, they're saying they can't live on that. I think they've got a very good basis to live on that, and they need to really utilise that 12 million streams to catapult themselves. Let's think about Amy L and the Sniffers, right? So you've heard all this.
Amyl was in amyl nitrate. That's what amyl is.
Amytal and the Sniffers, AMY.
Amyl, yeah, it's amyl as in that.
Okay. And if you have you have a look at what they're doing, and they're overseas just absolutely killing it. Now, there is a sexual part, I think. Anybody wants to counter me on that. There's definitely a sexual personification of the visual by the way she conducts herself on stage. But I still love the songs. I think the songs sound fantastic. It's just really dirty rock, and I love that. And visually, I love it. And here they are, they're only getting to their second album, and they are killing it worldwide and making a good living. So, I think that there is opportunities there, and you've just got to take it. You've got to be so positive about what you want to do and how you want to do it. And not enough artists, I think a lot of artists cry poor and go, it's all too hard. Well, you've got to push past that. There's no doubt. I'm positive about it every day anyway. But, mate, we could talk about that for hours. So
yeah.
I think we've gone to over 40 today, so we can finish up for the day and say it's been good talking to you, Rob, and let's talk next week and see what's on the agendas, eh?
All right, we'll do. Get some vision happening, maybe soon, and some sound.
I hope. Now, that's where you're pushing me, where I don't understand anything, right? Now I'm starting to get stressed thinking about how to do it vision-wise, but we'll get there.
Set the camera up and press record.
Yeah, thanks, mate. See you later.
Love it.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, another Laneway Talks. If you enjoyed that, just search Laneway Talks for more great conversations.